Hey guys, it's Ann Yorks from the Flower Box, and it is that time of year to gather your friends, your neighbors, your family, and do some cookie decorating. Look at those awesome sprinkles. With this video, I'm going to show you not only how to decorate these for cookies, but also how to set up your own cookie decorating party. I have created a kit with the essentials for you to host your own cookie fun. There is a prep guide that you can download and print. I'm going to cover it all. Let's cookie it up. So I'm going to start the video out by showing you how to decorate these for cookies. And these are just suggestions as you get started, but feel free to use your creativity. And then at the end of this video, you can get some extra bonus tips on how to set up your own Christmas cookie party. If you're having friends over, you definitely want to check that out. So this Christmas tree, I'm just outlining it using my piping icing, that's the thicker icing, with my icing bag with tip number 2. The piping icing is great for outlines and details. Now it's time to flood in. I'm using the thinner icing in the large tipless bags, and I'm flooding in generously those icing sections. Now, if you want to see definition between those icing areas, I suggest flooding in alternating icing areas. That'll give a nice definition line between those sections on the tree. Also, if you're planning to use that super cute sprinkle mix, you can find that sprinkle mix on flowerbox.com and also in the Christmas cookie party kit. Add those sprinkles now while the icing is still wet. I'm just doing an assortment of Christmas ornaments and jimmies just to add a real colorful pop to this cookie. Now we're going to be using this sprinkle mix throughout the video, so don't worry, those green swirly peppermint style ones, I'm going to be using those soon. Now once those sections have a chance to dry, allow that icing to crust and set up, you can go back in and flood in those remaining icing areas. Again, while that icing is still wet, add those sprinkles. That'll just keep them fixed firmly to the surface of the icing. If you want to add any piped details like I'm going to do, try to keep those sprinkles to the top of that icing section. Now we're going to flood in the tree trunk and the Christmas star, and it's okay to just flood over those lines to make it look like one big solid icing area. I let that icing set up for about 30 minutes and then it's ready for the details. Again, I'm using that piping icing and I'm going to just add some wavy lines and add some detail to the boughs of the tree. This just adds another dimension and pop of color and makes the cookie super fun. Now you can have loads of fun with this Christmas tree, and I can't wait to see what you make. This cookie, this gingerbread house, is probably my favorite in the Christmas cookie party set. Now, if you're new to cookie decorating, sometimes it's helpful if you're visualizing the different icing areas to drop an icing guide dot. Just put that little icing dot there, and that will help you when you're piping those lines to create the snowy roof. Again, I'm using tip number 2 on my piping icing to outline these areas. They're essentially just a wall that's going to hold back the flood when we flow in the thinner icing area into these sections. Now you can add any combination of windows and doors to your gingerbread house. Maybe you want to add a window box with flowers. Just have fun with it. These gingerbread houses are nice and big and just allow tons of room for all the details. One thing I'll point out is I'm pretty generous as I'm flooding in those cookies. It just really helps to keep that icing looking puffed up and flat once it's dry. Again, I'm flooding alternating icing areas just to create that beautiful dimension to the cookie. Now here are those green swirls. They are such a fun detail above the window. flood in the doors and the windows, and also that snowy roof. I'm just using that flood icing, and I am going to use some sprinkles on that snowy roof just to add a colorful pop to this really fun cookie. You can also add details using your piping icing, but these sprinkles come in rainbow colors, and so it's just lots of fun to put those onto the cookie. Now, once that icing has a chance to set up, it's time to go in and add those details. I'm using the white piping icing just to outline the doors and windows, and then I'm going to add some accents to the gingerbread house itself. You can have so much fun with loops and scrolls, dots, or swirls. And if you make a mistake, that little boo-boo stick, that pink scribe tool in the cookie decorating party kit, is perfect for tapping icing into place and cleaning things up. Sometimes icing areas can get a little wonky, so I'm just going to pipe a accent line across that snow, really just to bring it to the foreground and to clean that icing area up. Now we're almost done. I'm just going to add those shingles to the front of the house using a scalloped line. That cookie is so cute. I can imagine a million ways to make it. This stocking is such a Christmas classic. I like to add a toe and a heel in an accent color so that I can add stitching at the end. This stocking is going to be red, and I'm also going to show you a really fun wet on wet icing technique called marbling. So step one of marbling is to flood the base of the stocking using your red icing color. Now, while that icing is still wet, go back in with more flood icing, that thinner icing, and just add some lines to that red base. You can see those lines are just sort of melting in and creating one layer. Now, before that icing has the chance to set up, use the tip of your pink tool to just drag that icing up and down to create this beautiful marbling texture. It almost looks like a knit stocking. Let that icing area dry and go back in and flood the cuff, the toe, and the heel. Now, if you're looking for help on how much icing to make and how to mix these icing consistencies, watch the end of the video where I give you some party planning tips. I'm keeping these details pretty simple since we still have one more cookie to decorate. I'm adding some short piped lines for stitching on the toe, and then I'm going to also add the word joy on the cuff of the stocking. These cookies are great for personalization too, so you can add somebody's name. Okay, here's our last cookie. This one is so much fun to make. This is the ornament. I'm going to outline this circle in red, and then I'm going to section off a center icing area. This is essentially just in thirds. Then it's time to outline the top of the ornament, the hook, as well in yellow. Flood that center section in first. I'm going to be adding some loops to this. That section is also great for wet on wet details if you like doing that technique. Flood the yellow, let it dry, and then come back in and add the red. Here's another wet on wet icing technique that is so much fun and so easy to do. Flood that base, and while that icing is still wet, use your white flood icing to drop dots of white onto the surface. Watch those dots just melt into the base to create that cute polka dot pattern. I love adding loops to any cookie, so I'm going to add some zigzags on the top and some icing loops in green across the center. Notice I'm not dragging my tip, I'm just letting that icing fall into place with a nice even squeeze on the icing bag. Finish off this cookie with a decorative bead border. These are overlapping teardrops of icing. As I pull out the tail on the teardrop, I layer the next teardrop over the tail to create this pretty pearl border. Prepping for a cookie party takes a little bit of work, so I suggest making the dough, baking the cookies, and making the icing the day before. This will get the work out of the way so you can just have lots of decorating fun the day of the party. I suggest 1 batch of dough for 4 decorators or 2 batches of dough for 8 decorators. That'll give each person about 6 cookies to decorate. When you make your icing, just store that icing in airtight containers. I made 2 sets of the icing colors to share with all of my decorators, and it took me about an hour to bag all of the icing. First, I make the piping consistency, and I make 2 piping bags of that red icing. To keep the icing from squirting out the top, I just pull that bag up and tie the end into a knot. That'll just prevent any messy situations, especially if you're decorating with kids. Now that I've made my 2 bags of red piping, I'm going to make 2 bags of red flood icing. This is that icing that's going to flow on the surface of the cookie. So I've added 4 teaspoons of water to this icing, and I'm getting it to that 10-second icing consistency. Really, I'm just looking for that icing to flow off the spatula back into the bowl. Now I'm ready to make 2 bags of the red flood icing. While I mix the icing colors the day before I decorate, I wait and make my icing bags just before the party starts. That way your icing is nice and fresh in the bag. You don't want to bag your icing the day before because it can separate over time. Again, tie a knot on the end. That'll just keep the icing from squirting out. If you're looking for tips on how much icing to make and the colors that I used, definitely check out the blog post on flowerbox.com with the Christmas cookie party tips. Now, before my guests arrive, I had 8 decorators. I set up a big cookie decorating table in my kitchen using a fun Christmas tablecloth, lots of Christmassy snacks and treats. I made them store-bought just because it was so much easier than making my own treats. Everyone was ready to decorate, but to get them in the mood, I showed them the cookie decorating video of the 4 cookies just to show them the piping and flooding techniques and so that they could see the wet on wet designs. Now, these decorators got so creative with their cookies, and it was so fun. It took them about 2 hours because they were just laughing and decorating and enjoying each other's company. Now, when you host your party, I would love to see you and your decorators. Definitely hashtag me Flowerbox Cookie Party. I would love to see your cookie party and your cookies. Have so much fun decorating these Christmas cookies. Until next time, happy decorating.